Attacking football.
Attacking football.
Attacking football.
Attacking football.
Attacking football.
Hello and welcome to the Attacking Football Podcast. I am here, Tom Miller, your host, with Scott Mason, Daniel Whooley, and OddsOnFPL Paddy. How are we doing today, guys?
Doing great.
Doing well.
Could be worse.
Today's topics. Could be worse? Okay, well, what's going on over there, Daniel? Why could it be worse? What happened? Where do you guys get these jerseys?
I buy them from China. So the great thing about buying them from China is I have to buy 3 sizes larger than I normally wear, which is really good for the ego, you know?
Yeah.
Actually, mine's
you guys have a nice...
from Bose that has, not to get political, refugees welcome. The last one I wore was actually the Bohemians bus one, the Dublin bus one.
That was amazing.
Because I said on the last one, I wear that while getting the bus to the games. So I do look at the bus seats.
I always have called you a bus wanker, your head's to be floating.
Fair. Well, besides bus fare, guys, today's topics are values in the transfer market, which I really don't think you see very much anymore. A lot of these values are not going to be recent, not within the last 3 transfer windows, I don't think. We will also talk about cult heroes, they're always a blast. I'm interested to see some of your cult heroes because, Paddy, like we were discussing before, there are some cult heroes that we consider as opposing fans and the actual Arsenal fans may not actually like as cult heroes. And the last thing we'll do is injury records on players, our favorite players. We wish we could just heal them and give them their basically their entire careers back. But guys, let's start with best value in the transfer market. Paddy, what do you see as the best value of all time?
So I think value is obviously something subjective. I think every Irish fan is going to point to the man at the screen in the centre right now, Seamus Coleman. But I'm going to leave that to one of my fellow Irishmen to talk about him. The player that I'm going to talk about is Jamie Vardy. Jamie Vardy, hands down, as one of the best Premier League strikers ever. They signed him from the middle of nowhere, and he came into the Premier League initially sort of as a supporting striker or a winger, and then somehow he transformed into one of the best strikers in Premier League history. I think they paid $1 million for him, and he came from Fleetwood Town. So back in 2012, I think they've got a decent amount of years out of a player that really shouldn't have been able to just transition from that to a Premier League winner. Not only that, he had offers at Arsenal and decided to stay at the Foxes during that time. So I think that's probably my bargain.
Yeah, 170K is what Transfer Market had.
But they're wrong. It was $1 million.
It was $1 million. It was $1 million.
Yeah.
I mean, even you think about $1 million and what they got out of $1 million and what he did, not just obviously everybody thinks about the season where they won the title, where he was unbelievable. He scored against all the big teams. He actually has a phenomenal scoring record against every big team. Arsenal, Manchester City, Manchester United, all those goals.
Such a headache in FPL.
Yeah. And he always played up until about 2 years ago.
Yeah, the legs just went. I think one thing as well with Jamie Vardy, he offers so much more entertainment than just on the football pitch. He's even given people an interesting drama outside of it with the whole Rebecca Vardy and Wayne Rooney's wife Colleen, that debacle as well. So there's a lot more to the man than meets the eye.
Yeah, and also you have this era of super diets and guys taking care of their body, and you have a throwback who's fueled by Skittles and vodka and Red Bull. He's just this total throwback, late 80s. I'm not saying he did cocaine, but I'm saying that he was fueled by outside things rather than a terrific diet or something like that. And you can't deny, as a competitor, it's sad to see him now. He's 36. He's going down.
He's had his time
with Leicester. Yeah, it's okay though, right? I mean, he didn't really come into prominence until he was 27?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, so he's a late bloomer. But yeah, for me, I'd say he was one of the best value picks or one of the best value signings in Premier League history.
Yeah, I totally agree. Especially like I said, with his scoring record against the big teams, you can't ask for more than that. That's what you want from a striker. Still had an absolutely unbelievable scoring record as well, and I hope that he gets his due. It's kind of anticlimactic to have him drop down now, and there's no rumors of him moving anywhere. He's just kind of chilling at LC. So, yeah, that's a good one. Good start, Jamie Vardy for $1 million. Daniel Whooley, can you beat that?
So this goes back to my early days of watching football. And it's probably Edwin van der Sar to United for $2 million from Fulham. And I was really young when this came around. And
was it only $2 million?
It was, double check me on that, please.
It was just $2 million.
If you could fact check that. But as far as I remember, I think it was $2 million because he was quite old. He was in his 30s. I remember.
Oh, there's no way we got him for $2 million.
And again, 34. Like I know Fulham was a solid mid-table Premier League club, but equally, that's like going for Vincent Guaita now, and at that cost.
Yeah.
Like, that seems like a real bargain considering
$2 million was a bargain.
Yeah,
oh my god.
That's wild.
So there you go.
Probably your best ever keeper.
Oh, I think he's definitely one of the greats. And it's mad to think that he came in quite old. Like, unlike the other greats, if you look at even David De Gea, who came in at quite a young age and had the ability to create his legacy over a short time. David De Gea, Van der Sar came in, made an impact, easily inspired me to be a keeper. Not a great one, a pretty bad one to be honest, but it made me stick on the gloves.
Seeing you play football, I would probably assume that you grew up watching Barthez more than Van der Sar.
So the only reason I played keeper was I played GAA, so they were like, you can catch a ball, you're in goal.
Just get your body behind it.
Yeah, I think that's a great shout. Van der Sar stabilized Manchester United when they had some weird goalie problems before that. Who was it? It was like Tom Carroll and the American Roy Carroll and the American Tim Howard. Yeah, and it was a really makeshift goalkeeper line that caused a lot of problems for the team. They had no stability, and Van der Sar, like you said, he came in at like 33. I think it was, or right around there. And he had been a goalkeeper of the year, and he had been excellent at Juventus, but it seemed like they were catching him on the back end, right? They were catching him on the back end of his career. And instead, he was basically the best goalie in the league. I think Petr Cech probably was there as well in his prime. Van der Sar stabilized United, and as I will talk about in my best values, he actually became a core of players that United bought for relatively low fees, and changed United from being just an attacking team to a team that could put up 11 clean sheets in a row and those kind of things. Like, it was pretty wild. Scott, any thoughts on Van der Sar coming over to Manchester United and stabilizing him?
Yeah, well, I remember Van der Sar was an excellent goalkeeper, but I think I can beat Van der Sar with this one. As a Liverpool fan, there's many Liverpool players I'd go for, but I'm actually going to go for a Chelsea player and go with Azpilicueta. I think Chelsea signed him for about $6.5 million, and he was at the club for over a decade. He became club captain. He's won 2 Premier Leagues. He's won a Champions League, 2 Europa Leagues, and a bunch of other trophies in between. And he's been able to play in the centre defence, at left back, at right back. He's kind of just been a do-it-all player for them over the past 10 years.
I am personally shocked that you did not say Andy Robertson.
He was one of them. It was a toss-up between Robertson and James Milner, actually.
And probably Sami Hyypiä as well.
Yeah.
We've had a few. But yeah, I agree. Azpilicueta, great player. He's transformed while being there as well.
Yeah.
I think he came as a right back initially from Marseille.
Yeah, and I think Ivanovic was there. He couldn't push Ivanovic out, and so they put him to left back.
To be fair, I don't think many people could push Ivanovic out of the position because he was a unit.
But both, like, literally and obviously through quality.
Yeah. mainly literally, he was a unit. So,
yeah,
Tom,
I think that's a really
yours?
good one. It's a good shout. Well, I want to do a little bit on Azpilicueta, just the fact that in an era, the Abramovich era, which had so much turnover at the positions, to be able to lock down not just one position, but basically to make yourself, I mean, you wouldn't leave the lineup, for all those different managers is really impressive. And I wonder how much Chelsea are going to miss a guy with that kind of stability. Having those rocks is essential in the heart of your club, if not only just for leadership purposes. But yeah, I think it's a really good one, Scott. And I'm impressed that you chose him over Robertson when it was so easy to do as a Liverpool fan. But I'm glad we did. I'm glad we mentioned Robertson anyways. In the same vein of defenders, I have Nemanja Vidic for 7 million and Patrice Evra for, I think he was 9 million. I think the two of them I put together, but really it's Vidic. What Manchester United got out of Nemanja Vidic, especially if you guys remember, he sucked for the first 6 months. He was not good. Yeah, they both sucked coming into January. And they were, it was a new country. That's what they say in their biographies, that the new country was a big problem. But Vidic said he got thrown around. He didn't feel strong. And he went to the weight room for the next 6 months and came out on the other side as, in my opinion, the best Premier League defender ever. He won 5 titles in 7 years and came within. I said it, guys. I said what I said. I said what I said. He won 5 Premier League titles in 7 years and came within 4 points of winning 7-7. Won Champions League, 2 finals, and was the best player in the league as a center back twice, which is unbelievable. And another guy that we talked about last week, De Gea leaving, had an unceremonious departure from Manchester United, and then went over to Inter, where I think he had more red cards than games. He got a red card in his debut. He had plenty of red cards for United too. I think he had 5 against Liverpool alone. I think in all comps, him and Fernando Torres had some pretty epic battles. But for me, Vidic for 7 million was awesome. It was the change of an era at Manchester United, as they could rely on their defense and not just have to score 4 goals every game.
You mentioned red cards, and that reminds me of the most fun fact I know about Marcus Rojo, which is that he never got a red card playing for United, despite some pretty dodgy tackles I had seen.
He was a walking red card as well. And you know what the most ironic thing is? You translate his name from Spanish to English.
Red.
It's red.
Red.
Really?
Mark the red. Sure. Yeah. Marcus Rojo comes from that South American culture where they have those crazy derby matches. I don't know if you've ever seen any of them, but the tackles that fly in on these derby matches in Argentina and Brazil are wild, especially Argentina, I think's up there as the worst with Mexico. They're wild, and it actually translates into international play in CONCACAF when they play each other, because the refs allow so much more in those competitions. And then when those teams go to, big tournaments like the World Cup, they're not used to getting everything called because the tackles are out of control. And Rojo grew up in that era of Argentina tackles that they're just absolutely wild. I think Vidic is up there.
I think both of them matches are so boring. They always end 0-0. But there's so many yellow cards. If you've ever watched a game of River Plate against Braga, oh my God, it is intense. It gives you heart palpitations.
There was 7 red cards after 90 minutes or something.
Doesn't surprise me at all. They're just crazy.
Rojo is in there.
Well, yeah, I remember that.
Was he in that one?
I think he got one from the bench actually during one of the fights. Yeah, absolutely.
To be fair, speaking about Rojo, I think that might lead us into our next section.
Yeah, you think
he's of our greatest cult heroes?
I don't know if I'd put Rojo into that section.
Well, a cult hero can be a hero for many reasons. It can be whether a player is good, bad, forgettable for the wrong reasons or good reasons, whatever you want to see it. It can also be a legend of a club for maybe playing there for a season or two, or it can be for anything really. I guess since I've done this woeful segue, I'll introduce you to my one. My one is a player called Carlos Kaiser. He is a player who is more known for being the greatest football con man of all time. You might think some players like Freddie Adu or let's say Curlon would be players who are more well known for being con man, or maybe even Ali Dia. But Carlos
You read my
Kaiser
mind
is
there.
he is the epitome of a football con man. He spent a decade long of his whole career. His career lasted a decade, by the way, bouncing around clubs, pretending that he was a professional football player without ever playing a single regular game. His ability to deceive was better than his ability to play football. And it's the stuff of legend what he was able to get up to. He would join a club after training with them, somehow managing to get like a reference from a previous club, and then he would get injured after he signs a contract. After the contract runs out, he moves to another club, gets another contract, gets injured. He managed to do this for 10 years without ever playing a football match, and he bounced around clubs all over the world. But it was all about his charm. It was all about his facades and everything like that. So there was a story about when he was playing for Ajaccio in France. During his time there, the fans are waiting for him because it's called Kaiser. He's Brazilian. Everybody be excited for that. So to divert the attention from how poor a player was, he kicked all the footballs into the fans, kissed the club's crest, and declared his declaration from the club. Because of the fact there was no footballs there, nobody could see how bad he was at football, but they all saw that he kissed the club's crest and really passionately cared for it. And then all the fans loved him. But yeah, Google him. He never played a minute for a team. He is the epitome of a con man and a cult hero.
That sounds like a lot of envy, like a career that you aspire to, Paddy.
I have ability at football.
You have the ability, sure.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a good one. It's a good start. I like that, and that's a good point. Like if we had signed a Brazilian player named Kaiser, we'd be like, he's gonna be good, you know. So you can't really blame 10 or whatever clubs for signing him based on just being Brazilian and having a sweet name, you know.
I mean, we
I
had
think that's fair.
Anderson
Yeah, we and Cleberson. Anderson,
and
I think, was
Fabio.
better than Cleberson. Fabio, yeah, Fabio was fine. He was fine. Daniel Whooley, what do you got for your cult hero?
There's so many. You could start with obviously Eric Bailly, who I think there's a no context Eric Bailly Twitter page, which I love because the man's got so many highlight reels. Some road shows. Like I love Fabio Barini by his ability just to be utterly the worst player ever and like get strange moves. So he's played for both Roma, Liverpool, and AC Milan, and like has the worst like goal to like minutes ratio ever. But yet like has played for these massive clubs. But yeah, I don't really know. Like I guess you could argue Georgie Kelly, hey, for Bose for leading us, and for me for leading me. The first time I got to see Bose playing in Europe during the pandemic.
Magical.
I remember I was never at it, but I remember seeing the semi-final highlights when I think he'd scored, and we'd finally be able to go to the cup final. And I remember just seeing Daily Mount like on fire, flares everywhere. He was losing his mind. So I think there's a few there where you're just kind of like, to me that's a personal one. But I think Fabio Barini, by just every now and again, I remember on FIFA I was playing once as AC Milan, and I just saw Barini was there, and I was like, what on earth is he? What is this man doing here?
It's crazy. The only club that he scored more than 10 goals for in the league
Turkish team, isn't it?
has been for Fatih Karagümrük or something like that.
Was he not decent at Sunderland, no?
No. 7 goals in both of his spells there. Well, 7 in the loan spell and then 7 after it. He's one of those players that always flattered to deceive. I think the thing is, if you got an Italian name and you're playing in the Premier League, people are going to think you're good. But like it's like Scamacca. Is he good or is it a scam?
Yeah.
He does also have one.
Terrible.
He has one national team cap, and you got to think. Not only could you deceive other clubs, you managed to deceive the national team to give you one cap. They saw you play and they're like, never again, never again.
Italy have had some stinking players over the years.
And even though they won it, like they've got even their squad now isn't that great?
No.
It seems like you do get you can get in on your name in Italy, and they kind of fallen off as a result. If you look at what the Italian results are, other than winning Euro, which is kind of out of the blue, you think it's because they put in players like Barini. But yeah, Italy's had some stinkers, under 5 cap guys for sure. Scott, what's yours? What's your cult hero?
Well, this one won't come as a surprise, so I'm going with Divock Origi. That man just, there was some about him where he'd just, off the bench, he was R9 Ronaldo. Starting a game, he was Andy Carroll. You didn't know what you were going to get with him. And he just, his moments, if you just look at his best moments, he looked like the best striker in the world. Just in these individual moments, you could list them. But then other than that, he was pretty shocking when he was just starting games.
To be fair, I'd almost consider Andy Carroll a cult hero.
Oh,
For which team?
I mean, like, he's the kind of player. He's the kind of player who plays like a horse, and he also probably does ketamine as well. So, you know,
that makes sense.
That is an alleged. I don't want to get sued, but
Yeah,
he's known to.
I think that's a good one. That's a good one, Origi, especially when you have a Champions League winner. You know, he's a player that was superb off the bench, and anytime you guys had injuries up top or you wanted to rotate and you put him in as a starter, he was absolutely terrible, which is a perfect way to have a cult hero. I think Manchester United had Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who was very close to that, scored a ton of goals off the bench, didn't play particularly well when he wasn't on the bench, but he wasn't terrible. You know, I think he would be a shout for a Manchester United one that's similar to Origi. One of the ones that I wanted to bring up, guys, would be Gus Pyatt, the picture right there. I think that in our era, I think that he is the one probably that everybody would pick if you were to have a consensus. That stretch that he had for West Ham, which is what, about a calendar year or so, where he scored like every single free kick he took, and each one was taken different'ly. He was absolutely unplayable.
I will never.
I thought you said Gus Poyet.
What'd I say?
Gus Poyet.
Did you say Gus Poyet?
I think you mean Dimitri
might have.
Payet.
I was
Well, let's
so
go with Gus Poyet anyway. Let's go with Gus Poyet
I
anyways. Terrific manager. Could bend a free kick like you wouldn't believe. How's that?
Tom, genuinely, I was so confused there. I was just like, Gus Poyet, when has he ever scored a goal in his career?
We can do Dimitri as well if you guys want.
Oh, Dimitri, I completely got that. I was like, Gus Poyet.
No,
but yeah, Dimitri Payet, what a player.
I remember just seeing that free kick, the one where it looked like it was going out and curled top corner. And like, it's one of those things, like, even now you watch on a replay after like seeing it a million times and you're like, I don't know, this is like this thing.
It should not be possible.
I don't know how he did that.
And I love who he's there. It shouldn't be possible. Like, at the peak of his powers, and he was like, "Nah, I'm going back home. London's kind of shit. West Ham are kind of shit. I want to go back home." And I kind of respect. He could have milked them for all they're worth. I think he had just signed like a 5-year contract, but he was like, "Nah, fuck the Hammers. I want to go back to Marseille."
That's what makes a cult hero. Just decisions like that.
Rogue.
Yeah, I mean, also, guys, I had Emmanuel Boué on here just for fun. I always liked watching him play as an opposition fan. It just seemed like he was like a little kid in the game, like a 12-year-old. You watch his mannerisms and stuff like that. He was like a little kid. Like it seemed like he didn't understand what Arsenal was trying to do, but he still played a lot. And he would make these mistakes, and he'd have these antics that he like cover his face like a little kid. He did all these things, and I'm sure Arsenal fans don't want to talk about Emmanuel Boué, but he was up there for me. I think, Paddy, you were talking about something he did at the World Cup that we were laughing about too with him in North Korea.
Yeah, against North Korea, he went over to them and he was looking at while they were chatting. He just walked over to them and started chatting away, like as in nodding his head, like he understood what they were saying, but he most certainly did not, and it was hilarious because it just sort of went viral because of how ridiculous the whole situation was.
There was that one tweet he did as well, which was quite funny, where he was like, he was like, I'm home alone, what's the best thing to do? And everyone was just getting him with all this English slang.
Wank.
Yeah.
He was like, what is wank?
He was like, I'm gonna wank.
Oh,
Couple
God.
other cult heroes, guys, we didn't mention. Michu and Adriano. I think Adriano is a great way to segue actually into our final segment, which would be injured players that we wish we could bring back, like give them a few years of their career back. And I know R9 is an easy one, but Daniel, we were talking about Adriano as well as a guy that it wasn't just injuries that took him out, but a player that we would love to have seen a little longer.
Oh yeah, no, like again, maybe for a lot of us, we never really got to see R9 consistently enough for him to have a maybe us young folk anyway to like for his magic to really seep through. But he's one of those like what could have been players, and I think
Yeah.
when you like go back and listen to like him playing in the final, and essentially him being forced to I think playing the final, like it's just kind of nuts what he went through and how much
Yeah.
his body was on the line. And I love the quote he came out which was he has 2 scars, one in his heart and one in his ankle, both for his dad dying, and then obviously for him being unable to play. And it does show also, I think, the emotional side. And obviously, Dele Alli's come out, and there's a great article called "Dear Dele" on Attacking Football, which I recommend you read. And it does highlight that the emotional side of football that I think gets overlooked. And it was funny chatting to a few friends of mine who don't think or definitely don't think about football as much as we do, and they were like, you move to another team, why don't you just play well? And when I was reading a book called Soccernomics, it's funny how even other teams from years past wouldn't invest in their football players. They buy them, for example, Brazilians drop them in England and go play, and not realizing that it's a brand new country, brand new weather, they don't speak the language, brand new culture. How on earth do they integrate in? And yeah, like you hear even about when players retire, how obesity kicks in because they don't have the routine or the conditions around them to help that healthy lifestyle. How they end up in divorce because of their families that used to be around them all the time, and then they're around all the time. Yeah, it's not to sour the topic, but it is one of those things where I think I was kind of unnoticed in the beautiful game. But my what could have been is Eric Abidal. I guess obviously he played for Barcelona and he was unreal whenever he got a chance, but obviously cancer kicked in and he really struggled towards the end. But I do know, and not to make it funny, but when they were bringing the Champions League trophy over to him and he was going to lift it up, who was it? Was it not
Alex Song.
Alex Song.
Alex Song.
I
Yeah.
was picking the trophy to Alex Song to lift after winning the Champions League final, and not Eric Abidal.
I still cringe. Like my whole body cringes thinking about that situation. He must wake up at night just crying at that.
And I love the idea, like in his head, like in real time, he was like, "They're giving it to me, to me." Oh no! The guy who fought cancer and won beside me, of course.
This is brutal. Scott, what are your thoughts on an injury career you'd like to bring back? You can't say Naby Keita either.
Oh, that was literally my shout as well.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, he's genuinely. I think we signed him a year before he actually joined, and I don't think I've watched more of the Bundesliga than I did for that year. There was just something about him that I just really liked, and when he joined, I was just so looking forward to what he's going to bring to the team. And then he just kept getting injury after injury, and now he's left, and he got injured again in pre-season for his new club. So it's like,
yeah,
what could it have been?
think
He
Yeah.
had the ability of a player like Kevin De Bruyne as well. Like
yeah, he was.
he could have been something special.
I think he's had 30 injuries in the last 6 years. I think that's what I saw. And then today,
Yeah.
obviously, he went down with his injury today. Yeah, it's just a tough one. They signed him for a decent chunk too. I think it was like 55, right, Scott? Like 50.
Yeah, it was 55. I think there was like a good bit of add-ons as well.
Yeah, we
Liverpool
never got-
fans talking about add-ons. It's when it's United, it's always the full fee, but when it's Liverpool, it's 35 plus 20 million.
No, when it's United, we talk about euros because it makes the fee look higher.
Yeah.
It's true.
That
May
reminds
as well
me.
start talking in
true.
dollars.
I saw they were like saying
outrageous.
the top 10 most expensive transfer, and obviously Pogba was back up there, but his fee was like 95 million. But the original fee was 87 million. Like literally, Sky are just like adding on a few
called
million
inflation.
here or there. But
Yeah, super annoying way. Yeah, how about Gareth Bale a little bit? I mean, he got to do enough. A lot of these other players had their prime taken away from them. I think Bale got to play enough in his prime that we probably wouldn't add him to this list, but he still missed a ton of time. And you have to wonder if he had been able to play 38 matches every single season, if he, wouldn't have been more in the Ballon d'Or conversation.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was with Messi and Ronaldo, so he wasn't going to win one, but he was
He
phenomenal.
could've.
And I think he would have been in that conversation.
I think he
Also
was
think that
for a short spell of time. I think Bale was up there easily as one of the. I think there were seasons where he was better than Ronaldo, and there were seasons where he was better than Messi.
100%, yeah.
Like, as in, he was so good at his peak.
That year in the Premier League, right before he left, could be the most dominant year I've ever seen in the Premier League. It was up there for sure,
Yeah.
and especially playing basically on his own. It wasn't like he was playing with a phenomenal team. He scored goals completely on his own, and he did it every single game. It was unbelievable. I think Bale has to be a shout. Maybe Luis Saha, for Manchester United. Good player, not as good as the others.
Owen Hargreaves as well.
Not as good as these other guys, but up there.
Yeah.
I have one player that I'm going to talk about in terms of this as well, and it's a player that Dan, you may not know. Scott, you may not know either. But Tom, you may know. Sebastian Deisler, who played for Bayern Munich, who during like the early 2000s, he was seen as one of the best players in Germany at the time, but he suffered injury after injury. And at the time, he was seen as Germany's next great hope. He was their best midfielder. He could play right mid, centre mid, left mid, versatile. But he had a tear in his capsular, which I don't know what it is. And then he suffered cartilage damage, which ruled him out pretty much for 2 seasons. He was the kind of player that could have transformed the team. He went to Bayern and just couldn't get over his injuries. And like Dan, I'm going to put a downer on it. He ended up having 2 years pretty much out with depression, which seems bizarre, but he never got the passion back because he just couldn't get fit. Every single time he played, his body just gave up on him. And he was the kind of player that could have been one of the best, if not the best player in the world. That sort of level. And the thing is, sometimes, as the Dele Alli article, which has come out, or well, even the overlap, which has come out, people don't understand that footballers are real people. They're not robots. And depression and things like that can hit them as well. So for me, I'm going to be a little bit more conscious of screaming, "You bastard, fuck off," every single swear under the sun while I'm standing in the stands screaming at opposition players. Instead, I'm just going to say, "You're shit, and point at them. And you know what? If they can't take that, they don't have the mentality to be a football player, okay?
Are we going to see a very
my player is Sebastian Deisler anyway.
A very calm, composed Paddy on the sidelines when we play Shells on Friday? Is that it? You're not going to be screaming abuse at Duffer. Definitely not.
I'm going to a stag, so yeah, I'll be nice. I'll scream at the TV.
Headed for a stag. Where are you going for your stag?
Well, it's not. I'm not getting married, but I'm going to a shithole in Limerick and getting locked in a field. But
that's a way to go.
Classic.
Yeah, pretty much. Shall we wrap up the episode rather than speaking about my hungover antics this weekend?
We can wrap up the episode.
I'm just trying to get an episode under 30 minutes, and one day we will. Today, everybody,
today.
34 minutes.
We've done well. We've done
pretty well. All right, guys. Anything else to add? We did value today. We did cold heroes. We did players with injury records. Paddy, you got something else to add?
Subscribe to the channel and like the video. Leave some comments. We really appreciate them.
And to go one further, there's been some amazing articles published on attackinfootball.com. I highly recommend them. Obviously, we're plugging this because it's the podcast, it's the website's podcast, but the Dear Daddy article was a really good one, and I think more articles written with that sort of compassion can hopefully maybe change the discourse that happens online. So if you get a chance, it's a 5-minute read. It's well worth it.